thread narrow stitch is a great stitch for lightweight knits. I use it a lot on my finer, almost tissue knits. I also use it a lot on a lot of finer fabrics like a voile, which is a very fine cotton. Now we've already threaded up for the upper and lower looper, and we're going to use a 1 needle thread because this is a 3-thread stitch, but we want to use a narrow stitch. So we need to actually move our needle over into the right position versus the left position. So I'm loosening the screw for the left needle so I can take that needle out, but I also loosen the screw for the right needle so that I can make sure that I can slide that needle over. And I'm pulling that needle out, and to align the needle with my right needle position, I'm going to make sure again that I have the flat side of the needle towards the back and the curved side towards the front, and I'm lining it up with the position on the needle plate where the needle would come down, and then I'm going to take that needle just straight up, and it should be in position to go ahead and tighten that screw. I'm going to tighten the right one first so that my needle I know is in place. Now I know it's tightened. I'm just going to put a little bit more pressure on it, not a whole lot, and I'm going to tighten that left needle screw so that it stays in position as I'm stitching. Now I'm ready to thread my needle. Again, we're in the right needle position, so we're going to use that orange thread. I'm up through the antenna guide. We don't have that back pre-tension guide for our needles, but we do have one right above the tension disc. So we're going to slide that thread from the left to the right. We're going to come to the right side of the tension disc. Again, so this is a clockwise motion, all the way around up to the top and then back down so that it catches in that little spring. Now if we look at our threading chart, it tells me I want to come underneath this guide and then over the little hook. The last guide that I thread before I thread the eye of the needle sits actually right above the needles, and it's almost like a little shelf. When I thread that, I grab the thread with my left pointer finger and I slide the thread over that shelf and pull down. I find by doing this, I always make sure that I am in that guide. Now I'm ready to thread the needle, and what I want to do is always make sure that I have a nice clean cut on that thread so that it slides through that eye very easily. We're going to go from the front to the back through the eye of that needle, and we're going to pull the thread to the back side and then underneath, and then I'm going to attach the presser foot. So my needle is now threaded. I can close the front door cover. We don't need to examine the thread chart anymore. And to slide that presser foot in place, I'm going to simply slide it underneath, just like that. Lower the presser foot and make sure that it's connected in place and raise that presser foot. Now, if I refer to the setting chart from my instruction manual, for a 3-thread overlock narrow, I'll notice that I did not use that left needle, but I did use that right needle. I'm going to use my upper looper, and they tell me to put my tension on 4, and for my lower looper, they tell me to put my tension on 3. So let's go ahead and adjust our tensions to the settings suggested, and let's see what happens. The first fabric we're going to play with is actually going to be our cotton piece. And this is a light to medium weight cotton, probably more on the medium side. I am placing my fabric underneath my presser foot, and I'm just going to stitch to the end. As I come to the end, I'm going to engage that thread cutter by pressing down on the lever and cut the thread. Now let's take a look at that stitch. Oh, I need to make some adjustments. The first thing I can see is that I actually need to shorten that stitch length to about 2.5. Okay, that will bring those stitches a little closer together. And if I look at that needle thread, I actually think that that looks a little loose, because can you see how that's pulling up like that? Let's take that needle thread back to 4. And if I look at the front side, that lower looper thread is being pulled to the front, which gives me an indication that that 3 setting might be a little loose. So let's take that to actually a 4 setting. Now let's stitch on the other side of the fabric so we can compare the 2 stitches and take a look at the stitch this time to see if the adjustments that we made our tensions that we were having problems with. Okay, so immediately look at the difference in that stitch length. That is beautiful. And you can see that straight stitch looks like a straight line of stitching, and that's our orange thread. If we look on the back side, we don't see those little loops that we saw there, correct? Now if we take a look at our upper looper thread, it's all the way to the top, and our lower looper thread is not being pulled to the front like it was being pulled to the front here. Those stitches are actually meeting along that edge. So this is a perfectly balanced stitch. Now, we're going to stitch this on a very lightweight, and this is what I call a tissue knit. These are very fun to work with. Again, you want to find that stretch. I want this to go across my body, so that means I'm going to stitch a length that has stretch but doesn't have double stretch, so to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch along this seam, this edge of this fabric, creating a seam. And the reason that I use this on these lightweight knits is the fact that they're smaller, so they don't add bulk to that. And look at how beautifully that stretches. If I open this up to look at the right side, look at that beautiful seam with just that narrow stitch. Perfectly balanced. My threads, meaning my upper and lower looper, are meeting along the edge. You can see the straight stitch for that needle thread, and I see nothing out of alignment as far as tensions. Now we're going to try this on a really lightweight cotton. This is a cotton voile, and a cotton voile is usually very lightweight. It has a very high thread count and a very tight weave. Let's take a look and see what this stitch looks like on this fabric. Again, because this fabric is lightweight, I don't want a heavy stitch. Not just so much as far as the thread goes, but as far as the depth of the stitch adding bulk to that seam. Again, look at how beautiful that is. I see my upper looper thread on the front side, my lower looper thread on the back side. They meet on the edge, and when I open this up, I have a perfectly beautiful seam. That is the 3-thread narrow overlock, and you can see how easily it is to set up for it, but how easily it is to use on all those specialty or lighter weight fabrics.